The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, October 24th. Saints Aritus, the Martyrs of Najran, and Saint Ellisan. At the beginning of the 6th century, the Axumite Ethiopians crossed the Red Sea and extended their dominion over the Arabs and Jews of Himyar, Yemen, on whom they imposed a viceroy. Dunan, a member of the Himyarite family that had been thrown off the throne, took up arms and seized Zafar. Since he had converted to Judaism, he murdered the members of the clergy and turned the church into a synagogue. He immediately laid siege to Najran, which was one of the great Christian centers. The city defended itself so valiantly that Dunan, feeling unable to conquer it, offered amnesty if it surrendered. The defenders accepted the offer, but Dunan, instead of keeping his word, allowed the soldiers to plunder the square and condemn to death all Christians who did not apostatize. The organizer of the defense was the chief of the tribe of Banu Horeth, since then called Saint Aritus, with many of his men, and all were beheaded. Priests, deacons, and consecrated virgins were thrown into pits filled with fire. When Aretas' wife refused to agree to Dunan's amorous propositions, he had his daughters executed in front of her and forced her to drink their blood. He then ordered her to be beheaded. The Roman Martyrology relates that a 5-year-old boy threw himself on the stake where his mother was being consumed. 4,000 men, women, and children were killed. Bishop Simeon of Beth Arsum, legate of Emperor Justin I, was on the Persian border with an Arab tribe. When he heard what had happened, he passed on the news to the abbot of Gabala, who was also called Simeon. At the same time, the refugees from Najran spread the news throughout Egypt and Syria. The impression that the fact produced was not erased in several generations. Muhammad mentions that slaughter in the Qur'an and condemns the murderers to hell, Surah 85. The Patriarch of Alexandria wrote to the bishops of the East with the recommendation that they commemorate the martyrs, that they pray for the survivors, and pointing to the ancient Jews of Tiberias, who were in fact innocent, as guilty of the crime. Both the emperor and the patriarch wrote to the Axumite king Elesaan, whom the Syrians call David and the Ethiopians call Caleb, to claim vengeance for the blood of the martyrs. The monarch did not need to be incited to revenge and set out at once with his army to reconquer his power in Himyar. Elesaan succeeded in the campaign. Dunan died on the battlefield and his capital was occupied by the enemy. Albin Butler states that Elesaan, convinced that he had defeated the tyrant by divine aid, showed great clemency and moderation to the vanquished. Such a statement is false. It is true that Elesaan rebuilt Najran and installed an Alexandrian bishop, but both on the battlefield and in his treatment of the Jews who had incited Dunan to slaughter, he conducted himself with cruelty and greed befitting the barbarity of a semi-pagan nation. However, it is said that at the end of his life he renounced the throne in favor of his son, gave his crown to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, and retired to the desert as an anchorite. So states the Roman Martyrology. On the 27th of this month, Baronius introduced into the Roman Martyrology the names of Saint Ellisan and the Martyrs of Neron, without taking into account that they were all monophysites, at least in the material sense of the word.